Hi team, welcome to the Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast. My name is James McFetrich and this is an ongoing toolkit for all healthcare staff. Whether you are a porter or a paediatrician, a domestic or a driver, clinical or non-clinical, just starting or just finishing your work in healthcare, this podcast aims to give you some useful thoughts about working for this amazing business to get you through your day. Thank you so much for listening. I hope these thoughts are useful and the podcast is fulfilling its purpose as a toolkit for all healthcare workers. So before we start, if you enjoy listening to this podcast, please tell other people, tell your co-workers, share what you like about it. Go on, put it in your work WhatsApp group. Go on, do it now, then it's done. And feel free to follow at JMac Education on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Threads, whatever your social media preference is, and you'll get more information related to the podcasts and other JMac Education updates. Thank you. Thank you for joining me once again for another episode of the Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast. We've had a break over the past month just to reset and recharge and get some more inspiration and thoughts for the podcast. So thank you for joining me again. Today we are going to look at leadership. This ties in with a conference talk I'm doing this week, and I thought it'd be quite interesting to distill that down to a few key points that are relevant to how this podcast combines those sometimes intangible aspects of clinical and non-clinical work in healthcare, and the way that I think about leadership does tie in with just that general understanding of how to work well in healthcare with those thoughts about kindness, curiosity, and comfortable shoes. So with specific thoughts about kindness, firstly, in relation to leadership, it's really easy to forget to be kind. Sometimes with the pressures of work and with certain targets that need to be met, and we've covered that in a previous episode, that ongoing thought about being human and dealing with other humans can easily get forgotten with the pressures of targets or the clinical pressure of an individual patient in front of you. That to work well and as effectively as a team, and certainly if you're leading that team, to remember to be kind to people. Remember they may be having their own personal issues at the time you are liaising with them. They may feel quite stressed about the situation that you are dealing with, whether that's with an individual patient or a managerial situation. And just being kind, and remember that we're all human. We all have our own personal struggles, maybe inside or outside of work, and kindness will go a long way to having that empathy that we need to be able to work well with other people. And clearly also, if you are kind to people, then people will be kind to you. And as a leader, that can be really nice to have that bit of feedback and people being empathetic to your needs, rather than it just being one way the whole time. So there is a reason, clearly not the sole reason, to be kind to people, for it to be shone back at you. But it's nice to remember that if we spread a little kindness around, then some of that will be reflected back. And, do you know, even if it isn't, you will feel better. And there's evidence to show that's the case, that if you're kind to people, even if it is unrequited kindness, that you will feel better as a result of that. By making people feel better around you, you will also feel better. Some of the evidence about kindness relates to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Again, something that I've referred to previously on the podcast. If it's the first time you've come across that, it's this selection of 5 different areas and of life that are important to acknowledge. It's talked a lot about in education that you need to acknowledge the bottom layers before people can be comfortable in a situation to learn. And it's the same for a work environment as well. And right at the bottom, you have physiological needs, thinking about people having access to water, to food, to shelter, to sleep, all those standard physiological aspects of life. And if those are attained, the next level is safety needs. That's aspect of personal security, employment, resources, thinking a bit more in depth about your health. Above that is love and belonging. That's friendship, intimacy, family, that sense of connection. Above that is esteem, and that is your own sort of respect for yourself and for others, any status or recognition that you may have. And at the top, once you have achieved all those levels, there's that actualization of becoming the most or the best that one can be. And that may feel slightly abstract, but it translates very well to work, and especially for kindness, because when we're really under pressure, and I saw this a lot in the emergency department, when you're really working hard, it's easy to forget our own basic biological needs, having something to eat, having a drink, having rest. And the important thing about Maslow's hierarchy is that it's difficult to appreciate those aspects higher up the triangle or the pyramid if you aren't getting those basic levels met. So especially as a leader, if you come in and you want to thank people for the work they've done and acknowledge that they've worked hard, that comes in really quite high up in that esteem level. And superficially, it may be accepted. And you will have definitely worked in places where this has happened, where people come in and thank you and pat everyone on the back, you've done a good job. But the grumbling from the workforce is, well, that's all very well thanking me, but I haven't had a break. I don't feel that I'm paid properly from those sort of employment aspects. I don't feel I belong to this team. And those are in the first 3 layers of the hierarchy. And those need to be acknowledged and dealt with before we can genuinely accept any of those aspects higher up, such as other people showing us respect. So as a leader, if you want to show people that they've done a good job and thank them for it, certainly in my opinion, for that to be accepted and acknowledged, we need to make sure that we are making sure that people have access to food and water and rest, that they are employed properly, that they feel safe at work, they have the resources to do their work properly. Then they have that sense of connection and that teamwork, and only then that esteem level will come into play. And it's worthwhile acknowledging that and thinking about that as a leader. So kindness, easy to forget, really important to acknowledge that it's going to be key to being a good leader, but we, along with being kind, need to remember more basic primitive needs that the people that we work with and ourselves will need. Secondly, there's curiosity, and that whole sense of being curious about those people around you, those people that you work with, really important in a team to understand people's strengths and weaknesses, ask them about what they can bring to the team, and likewise sharing something about yourself at a level that you feel comfortable doing. And that reflects very much on Johari's window. Again, I think I've talked about this previously, thinking about areas that are known to yourself and unknown to yourself, and areas about yourself that are known to others but also unknown to others. So the areas that we know and that others know is that open area. That's the perhaps very superficial, perhaps very accessible part of ourselves. And the unknown unknowns, the bit that we don't know about ourselves that aren't accessible to other people, are going to be blind to everyone. Key areas to understand in this is the blind spots area, so the bits that we don't know about ourselves but other people do know, and we can only uncover that blind spot by getting feedback. And by getting that feedback, we understand a bit more about ourselves and reduce that blind spot. And an area that's talked about less, the hidden area, things that are known to ourselves but not known to others. The only way that we can let people know about that if we are happy to disclose information. And clearly it's entirely right that we do keep some things known to ourselves, and we may not want to share certain things in a work environment. But if we disclose aspects of ourselves, our personalities, to other people, we reduce that hidden area. And that can be an important way of enhancing friendships and relationships at work, and can only enhance that teamwork that we have. As a leader, you need to have that curiosity about yourself, about what you want to disclose, but also being curious about those who you work with. And we can extend that also to being curious about the decisions that you make as a leader or with your team, analysing that. And certainly when we look at general workload management and decision-making skills, we can be quite good at finding an array of choices to make a difficult decision, but we're not very good at looking back on those decisions and completing that loop to understand our decision-making process. So being curious about that is going to be important as a leader. Finally, wearing comfortable shoes, and the thread throughout everything in the podcast is making sure that we look after ourselves. Genuinely invest in a pair of comfortable shoes, because you're going to be walking in them all day. It's really important to look after ourselves, just in that simple aspect of wearing shoes that aren't going to cause us problems. But it's also a metaphor for investing in yourself. You need to be yourself all day. You need to be true to yourself. And with that, you'll be able to lead a team well and manage a team well. So we need to be aware of the things that are important for us as individuals, so we can look after ourselves. I hope that's a different slant on the kindness, curiosity and comfortable shoes mantra that I have, thinking specifically about how that affects us as leaders. And it's important to sign off that people are all leaders. Everyone who works in healthcare is a leader in some form. There'll always be some project that you will lead, some area of work that may only be small that you are still leading. And for those people who feel that doesn't apply to them, I expect if you look closely at your work, there will be areas where you are a leader. However new you are to healthcare, however junior you feel, there will be aspects where you are leading a small team for a small area of work. And clearly, as we progress through our careers, if that's our want, then that aspect of leadership will become more clear and more obvious, especially in the sort of managerial structure or the clinical structure of the healthcare systems that you work in. Thank you for listening today. There are links in the show notes for information that I've referred to in the show. And if you enjoyed the show and want to help the podcast grow and expand, then please support me and the show and head to buymeacoffee.com/jmaceducation. That's buymeacoffee, all one word, .com/jmaceducation, and support the podcast there. Or if you're listening on the podcast website at kccpodcast.buzzsprout.com, click on the heart on the top right of the page, or click on the support the show link in the show notes. It's also really helpful for me if you rate, review, like, follow, share, subscribe, whatever's appropriate on whichever platform you're listening on. Again, it really does help grow the show. Thank you. So please take care of yourselves out there. You are doing a great job, and remember, be kind, be curious, and don't forget your comfortable shoes. Thank you to Shakina Studio for the music, downloaded through Audio Jungle. Thank you to Beth for the artwork and the photo, produced through Canva. And thank you to Buzzsprout for hosting the podcast. The Kindness, Curiosity and Comfortable Shoes podcast is a JMac Education production.